In 1980, 50% of American adults were smokers. Today, you can't light up on a plane without risking arrest. This drastic change is just the tip of the iceberg. We're about to explore 15 everyday activities from the 80s that have completely vanished from our lives. Number 1, going to video rental stores. Remember when Friday night meant a trip to the video store? It was an event in itself, wasn't it? You'd walk in, greeted by rows upon rows of VHS tapes, each promising a night of entertainment. The smell of popcorn lingering in the air, the soft whir of rewinding machines in the background. It was a sensory experience we took for granted. Choosing a movie wasn't just about picking something to watch. It was an adventure. You'd wander the aisles, picking up cases, reading synopses, debating with friends or family about what to get. Should we go for the new release or that classic we've been meaning to watch? The anticipation built as you made your selections, knowing your weekend entertainment was in your hands. But times have changed, haven't they? Now we scroll through Netflix or Prime Video, hundreds of options at our fingertips, no need to leave the house, no late fees to worry about. It's convenient, sure, but doesn't it feel like we've lost something? Gone are the days of be kind, rewind, and the thrill of snagging the last copy of a popular new release. Our movie nights might be easier to plan now, but do you ever miss the ritual of the video store visit? Number 2, smoking on airplanes. Speaking of relics from the 80s, remember when you could light up a cigarette at 30,000 feet? It sounds crazy now, but back then, smoking on airplanes was as common as peanuts and pretzels. Imagine stepping onto a plane, finding your seat, and seeing ashtrays built right into the armrests. That's how it was. In those days, airlines had designated smoking sections, usually at the back of the plane. But let's be real. Smoke doesn't exactly stay put, does it? Non-smokers often found themselves in a hazy cabin, breathing in secondhand smoke for hours on end. As health concerns grew and people became more aware of the risks, things started to change. Airlines began to ban smoking, first on short flights, then on longer ones. By the early 2000s, smoking on planes was pretty much history. Now, when we fly, the air is clearer and there's no lingering smell of smoke on our clothes when we land. It's definitely more pleasant for non-smokers, but I bet some of you smokers out there still miss those mid-flight puffs. Number 3, using printed maps or directions. Did you remember the time when getting from point A to point B wasn't as simple as asking your phone for directions? Back then, road trips meant packing an atlas or stopping at gas stations to buy local maps. You'd trace your route with your finger, planning rest stops and scenic detours. And who could forget the art of refolding those unwieldy maps? It was a skill in itself. As computers became more common, services like MapQuest changed the game. Remember printing out pages of turn-by-turn directions before a trip? You'd have a co-pilot reading them out loud, hoping you didn't miss a crucial turn. Now, our smartphones do all the work. GPS technology and apps like Google Maps give us real-time directions, traffic updates, and even alternate routes. No more unfolding maps or printing directions. It's convenient, sure, but don't you sometimes miss the adventure of navigating the old-fashioned way? Number 4, recording songs from the radio onto cassette tapes. If we tell our kids that we used to record our songs onto cassette tapes, they might call us old-fashioned. But how many of you can recall that sweet memory? Imagine it's a Saturday afternoon in 1985. You're sitting by your radio, fingers hovering over the play and record buttons, waiting for your favorite song to come on. Back then, we were all DIY radio DJs, weren't we? You'd listen intently, trying to catch the beginning of a song, hoping the DJ wouldn't talk over it. It was a test of patience and reflexes, and when you finally captured that elusive track, pure joy. But it wasn't just about individual songs. Remember creating mixtapes? Each one was a masterpiece, a carefully curated playlist that told a story. You'd spend hours selecting the perfect tracks, making sure the mood flowed just right. Fast forward to today, and creating a playlist is as easy as a few clicks. No more sitting by the radio, no more carefully rewinding tapes. Number 5, payphones. If we magically teleported back to the 80s, one iconic sight would be payphones scattered across the streets like trusty sentinels. They weren't just decor, they were vital communication lifelines. But you needed coins to make a call. Cue the frantic search for spare change. You'd dig through pockets, scrounge in your car's ashtray, or beg a quarter from a passerby. It was a whole adventure just to make a simple phone call. But now, with our smartphones always at hand, we've forgotten the thrill, and sometimes frustration, of hunting for a working payphone. Number 6, checking books out of the library using a card catalog. I can bet we've stirred up some memories. Now, let's revisit another 80s classic, the card catalog. But we're not just browsing for books. we're diving into a system of index cards stored in rows of small drawers. This was your Google before the internet. Searching through these cards was like a treasure hunt, each card holding a clue to finding the right book. Navigating this system wasn't easy. It required sharp eyes, nimble fingers, and a good grasp of the Dewey Decimal System. Remember the satisfaction of finally finding the right card after flipping through dozens? It felt like a triumph every time. Today, finding a book is just a few clicks away, but do you ever miss the tactile thrill of hunting through those cards? Each search was an adventure, a journey through knowledge that demanded patience and skill. How times have changed. Number 7, listening to the Walkman. Speaking of nostalgia, remember when your favorite tunes were always at your fingertips? Or should we say, at your hip? Let's rewind to the days of the Sony Walkman, the gadget that changed how we experienced music forever. Introduced in 1979, the Walkman quickly became a global sensation and a cultural icon of the 80s and 90s. Suddenly, music wasn't just something you listened to at home or in the car. It was portable, personal, and always with you. Remember creating mixtapes for your Walkman? It was an art form, carefully selecting songs and recording them from the radio or other sources. The music of the 80s was as diverse as the hairstyles. From Michael Jackson to Madonna, Prince to Duran Duran, our Walkmans played it all. But it wasn't just about the music, it was about the experience, the feel of the buttons, the satisfying click as you popped in a new tape, the slight buzz in your ears as you cranked up the volume. Number 8, watching network TV at specific showtimes. Imagine it's Thursday night and you're rushing home to catch your favorite show. No DVRs, no streaming, just you and millions of others glued to the TV at the same time. Back then, watching network TV at specific showtimes was common. We planned our evenings around TV schedules, making sure we were home in time for must-see TV nights. Remember gathering with family or friends to watch The Cosby Show, Cheers, or Miami Vice? It wasn't just about the shows. It was a shared experience. The next day, everyone would be talking about last night's episode. Water cooler conversations revolved around who shot JR or the latest Magnum PI case. But times have changed, haven't they? Now, with the rise of on-demand streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and Disney+, we watch what we want, when we want. Entire seasons drop at once, letting us binge-watch to our heart's content. Number 9, art of letter writing. Back in the 80s, writing letters was an art form. You'd sit down with pen and paper, carefully crafting your message. Remember the satisfaction of sealing an envelope, sticking on a stamp, and dropping it in the mailbox? The letter would then take several days to reach its recipient. The wait was part of the experience. Each day, you'd rush to the mailbox, hoping to find a reply. When it finally arrived, it was like Christmas morning. People eagerly checked their mailboxes, hoping to find a letter waiting for them. Now we fire off emails and texts without a second thought. It's instant, sure, but doesn't it feel like we've lost something? That personal touch, the excitement of a handwritten letter, it's become a rare treat in our digital world. Number 10, playing music on vinyl records. Remember those handwritten letters we just talked about? Well, let's flip the script and talk about another hands-on experience from the 80s, playing vinyl records. Picture this. You're in your room, carefully sliding a shiny black disc out of its sleeve. The artwork on the cover is so big and detailed, you could stare at it for hours. Remember how vinyl records dominated the music industry back then? It wasn't just about listening to music, it was a whole ritual. You'd gently place the record on the turntable, carefully position the needle, and wait for that first crackle before the music started. It was magical, wasn't it? But it wasn't just about the sound. Album covers were works of art in themselves. Remember flipping through your collection, admiring the creative designs? The large covers provided a canvas for creative and elaborate artwork, which added to the overall experience of owning and listening to a record. Now we stream music with a click. It's convenient, sure, but don't you sometimes miss the physical connection to your music? That's why vinyl's making a comeback. People are rediscovering the tactile and sensory experience that digital music formats lack. Isn't it funny how what's old becomes new again? Number 11, playing arcade games at the mall. Arcades were more than just places to play games. They were social hubs where friends gathered to challenge each other and show off their skills. Remember the thrill of seeing your initials at the top of the high score list? It was like being a local celebrity. Popular games like Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and later Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat drew crowds of eager players. The clinking of quarters and the chatter of excited gamers created an electric atmosphere you just can't replicate at home. Speaking of home, the rise of gaming consoles like Nintendo changed everything. Suddenly you could play arcade-quality games without leaving your living room. And now, online multiplayer games have taken things even further. But don't you sometimes miss the camaraderie and excitement of the arcade? Number 12, using floppy disks. Floppy disks were the heart of data storage back then. Remember that satisfying click as you slid one into your computer? These flexible magnetic disks came in different sizes, but the 3.5-inch and 5.25-inch formats ruled the roost. Now here's the kicker. These disks could only hold a tiny fraction of what we store today. Floppy disks had relatively small storage capacities, typically ranging from 360 kilobytes to 1.44 megabytes. Can you imagine fitting your favorite playlist on that? But here's the real challenge. Floppy disks were delicate creatures. Handling care was essential because floppy disks were sensitive to magnetic fields, dust, and physical damage. One wrong move, and poof, your data was gone. Fast forward to today, and we've got USB drives that can hold thousands of times more data. And let's not forget about cloud storage. It's like having a bottomless floppy disk in the sky. Number 13, using rotary phones. There was a time when a revolving dial was the norm for making and receiving calls on rotary phones. Users would be able to dial phone numbers by placing their finger in the corresponding hole and turning the dial. On the other hand, touch-tone phones made it possible to press buttons and dial faster when they were launched in the 1960s. Then, a game-changer in communication came along in the form of mobile phones, which allowed for wireless calling and messaging. As we move toward more sophisticated forms of communication, rotary phones are becoming more of a collectible or nostalgic item due to their iconic look and distinctive dialing mechanism. Number 14, the Yellow Pages. These thick printed books were the Google of their time. Phone books were a staple in households and businesses, providing a comprehensive directory of phone numbers and addresses. Remember the satisfaction of thumbing through those thin pages, scanning for just the right business? But it wasn't just about finding phone numbers. The Yellow Pages were a window into your local community. You'd discover businesses you never knew existed right in your neighborhood. It was like a treasure hunt in your own backyard. Fast forward to today, and we've traded paper for pixels. Online directories, search engines like Google, and mobile apps offer instant access to contact information, making it easier and more efficient to find phone numbers and addresses. It's convenient, sure, but don't you sometimes miss the tactile experience of flipping through those Yellow Pages? Number 15, slide projectors. Slide projectors were our window to the past, weren't they? Whether it was reliving family vacations or sitting through business presentations, these machines were the kings of visual storytelling. Remember the satisfying click as each new image appeared? But creating a slideshow wasn't as simple as clicking a button. It took patience and planning. To prepare a slideshow, users had to carefully arrange individual slides in a carousel or tray. Each slide was a tiny work of art developed from film and mounted in its own little frame. Now, we swipe through digital albums or click through PowerPoint slides without a second thought. It's convenient, sure, but don't you sometimes miss the charm of those projected memories? The anticipation as the room went dark and the first image appeared on the screen?